and welcome back to KTN Morning Express. I'm Michael Kranja. Now, last week we had the first ever innovation conference held in Nairobi, and from that discussion there's a lot of questions about how we support the next phase of techpreneurship in this country and how we get them to support to actually make sure that they grow from small ideas into something that is actually marketable and profitable for them. And today in studio I am joined by Sam Gishoro, who is the CEO of NILAB, to help us kind of decipher this conversation and just look at where the next step forward. Sam, karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Karanja.
First of all, the Innovation Summit, you were part of the whole process in terms of setting that up. What was the whole thinking about having that conference in the first place?
I think what we noticed earlier on is that innovation was a Nairobi thing, and it was time to make it national.
Yeah.
It was time to have a national agenda that said, hey, we are innovators are all over the country. We have people in Bomet, we have people in Mombasa, we have people in Kisumu who are building things, and they need a platform where they can showcase these things and sensitize the private sector and government and international that we are here and we're willing to innovate. So ideally we said, let's just have, instead of having the usual Nairobi events, let's have a national innovation forum still in Nairobi, sensitize everybody, and hopefully now we can be able to plan on a rollout to the rest of the country.
There's been this kind of explosion, especially for techpreneurs, ever since the advent of faster internet and people actually just getting to know one another, and people thinking more about solutions in terms of how we access. Just looking at that explosion, where are we in terms of how some of these young innovators are able to access the market?
Let's do this. One, the world is flat now. If you sit in Nairobi and you sit in San Francisco or you sit in London or Singapore, you can build almost the same thing.
Yeah.
So while you're looking at a company like Product Hunt that's less than 3 years old, or Uber, which is less than 5 years old and is worth 17 billion, seated in Nairobi, then you should be able to think, I can also build a $17 billion company. Actually, the best part is when you're seated in Nairobi or Cape Town or Cairo or Lagos, you have 1 billion people to sell your products to.
Yeah.
So for starters, let's not say there's no market. When people talk about lack of market, is because they're thinking about Nairobi or they're thinking about Kenya, which is 40 million, which you do your math, you'll find you can only sell to about 4 million people. You start thinking globally, start thinking Africa-wide, which is one of the agenda that NILAB has been driving. Our vision is to build startups that can compete on a global level. So market is not a problem. But where are we? I think your question is, where are we as a country as far as if we benchmark ourselves to the rest of the world? We're still toddlers. We're still now standing up now. I mean, it's 5 years ago we were crawling, we were born when high-speed internet came into the country and mobile phones were penetrated. We still don't have everybody with a smartphone. We still don't have everybody accessing the internet. So we're standing slowly. And what you've noticed is that there's been a lot of improvements in the last 4 years of running NILAB. Initially people had horrible ideas and they applied for the program. Today when people apply for the program, they are actually solving specific problems for Africans, whether it's in health, whether it's in education, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in agriculture. They're all looking at those and solving very particular problems. So I think we're at a good place where now we are saying our problems represent our opportunities.
Just looking at home, because you mentioned where people are thinking of just dealing with where Kenya is, just looking at that, have you seen progress in the terms in the way ideas are mooted while they're there? Have you seen any idea that can grow outside these borders?
Yes. Actually, I can confidently say now, today, seated here, I can say yes. We do have ideas that we can export now. I think 2-3 years ago, the only thing we could brag about was M-Pesa. And then Ushahidi, which was exported globally, of course. And now you're looking at other solutions like M-Copper. I mean, they are solving a serious problem when it comes to lighting homes and providing energy to people in rural areas using simple solar and mobile phones and converters and all of that. So M-Solar, I can see M-Solar as a solution, M-Copper as a solution going across the continent. Ask me, my friend Augusto Lico, CEO of Pesapal, I can see Pesapal being adopted now in countries like Romania or other countries where M-Pesa has gone ahead. So of course we've exported M-Pesa, which means any solutions built around M-Pesa like M-Ledger, Pesapal and these others can be exported to this market. I'm looking at Cladlight, the people who develop this jacket, the wearable jacket with indicator lights for both border cyclists and for both industrial use, maybe in the oil and gas industry or manufacturing, just provide more visibility for people who are working. It's exportable. So I'm actually seeing a lot more solutions that are exportable. I'm seeing the quality of solution increasing. people are starting to realize this is not just about tinkering with software. It's about making the end user enjoy using what you've built, but at the same time solving their major pain points. And if it can solve a pain point in Nairobi, it can solve a pain point in Dar es Salaam, Kampala, it can solve a pain point in Lagos again. So
when I look at innovation, I always think back to what we keep hearing and seeing, Silicon Valley, where at least there's a lot of people are more or less what we call a community, and transferring that here, we've always heard about this Silicon Savannah and how we're supposed to bring that together in terms of where we're able to connect some people who are able to fund, because these ideas don't come cheap.
yes.
But just even before we get to that, what are some of the biggest challenges that these young innovators are facing?
First, you mentioned Silicon Savannah, and there's been a lot of talk about Silicon Savannah.
Yeah.
But then, what is Silicon Savannah? Is it Konza? Truth of the matter, Konza is still a bush, okay, 100 kilometers from the city. But in about 15 or 10 years, Konza will be a beautiful city. It will be a beautiful technology city. And I'm actually really looking forward to that. Of course, I'll be probably not be innovating, I'll be a farmer then. But at the same time, you come to Bishop Magwa,
Yeah.
and you find there's a group of innovators that work from there. You go up the road and you find another group and another group somewhere else. So one of the bigger challenges that the community works in a lot of silos. Now in Silicon Valley, when you're in San Francisco, you definitely know where the meetups are happening, you know where Twitter offices. I mean, everything is well organized, structured. When you go down the culture into Palo Alto, Mountain View, you know, you'll be able to go see Google offices. You know, there's a sort of a structure that tells you where people are at, and you can almost feel the sense of community. You could be 2 hours train drive from San Francisco, and you can still have somebody referring you back to another part of the city where you'll meet a specific type of innovator. So while they spread out, there's still a sense of community that we were lacking here before the National Innovation Forum.
Yeah.
Now that the National Innovation Forum has happened, I can tell you for sure, I know of incubators, I know of people developing interesting technologies that are not necessarily at Bishop Magwa and not necessarily at Ngong Road. One problem sorted out. Making sure these silos don't exist anymore.
Where you have a bit of linear site where people are...
Exactly. You know, now when I know that, then brings you to the question probably you're going to ask about where do I direct VCs or angels and things like that. But the first biggest challenge was having just knowing where the community is all at, bringing it together, putting it in one single space at KICC, and then saying, okay, now we know you and you know us and you know how we're willing to help you. Let me just jump to the second challenge, which is interesting. Incubators, unless they're government funded, they're not businesses. We have AfriLabs that has 20 incubators across the continent. We have seen that business models are almost impossible. As an innovator, I can't charge you for rent. I can't charge you for anything. You barely have anything to actually pay me. It's my job to help you with everything, which means over and above paying my operational cost, I have to pay the cost of training you, teaching you, helping you walk through your product until your product goes to market. Which makes it, even if I take 10% of our product, it's such a long-term investment. If you sell it for 100 million in the next, say, 4 years, I'll only make 10 million. 4 years, 10 million is not enough to run a business. Yeah. So incubators have that challenge that they need a lot more government support. Government needs to pour a lot more money in them. And I'm glad to see that the government's commitment in the last 3 years, we had a contract with them, and I can see that, I can feel that the government is putting more money in this space. And they have done a good job.
Interesting, talking about government, and during that innovation conference we had the president actually come out very clearly and say that we need to link some of these young innovators with, you know, the biggest people who can buy actually these things are government. If you create government-centric solutions, because right now government, we all know the government is aiming for digital age, but some of their things are still very archaic in the manner that they are done. So how encouraging is it when you actually hear that you have someone who's willing to actually take up some of these innovations that are coming up?
Now, the process has been very interesting. Yeah. When government wants to tender for a solution, say for example, and the president gave amazing example during the National Innovation Forum. He talked about hardware that is not doing anything in government offices and software that's not doing anything in government offices. That's a waste. And he said we should not be having this waste. And the problem has always been when government wants to tender for something, they say, okay, fine, what is the first place they'll run to? They'll run to somebody who's implemented the software in 5 other different countries in a similar, let's say, Ministry of Defense or whatever, and they will look for that person to come and do it for them.
Let me just stop you there. Let's have that clip of the president and his pronouncement during the ICT, during the innovation conference last week.
We have spent billions of shillings, billions over the years, importing various systems, 90% of them which don't work and lie idle in offices here. You know it as well as I do. Paying huge amounts in license fees. And yet the same is available right here and we cannot support our own people. You know, it's actually something that we need to really look at and consider. Huh? The forensic apps that we saw, why can we not have them working with our police? Why are our police looking for imported solutions and yet the solution is right here? Let us support, and that way we grow their industry, we get them known. They will be exporting to those countries where we import from. The app for students who are deaf, why can they not work in conjunction with our Ministry of Education? Why do we need to look for other solutions and we have our own? I think for me, and I want to direct Wanayinda and you yourself, Fred, put these people in touch with our ministries. Let our monies be used to support our industries as opposed to buying products from outside. Let us be the bridge that helps them, and then private sector can move in the background. But we as government should take the lead. Yeah? Government procurement must be used to facilitate and to develop our own industries, our own innovators first.
Interesting challenge thrown there by the government, but you were coming to something about procurement.
Actually, I can't add anything to what the president said. It's exactly what the challenge we're facing. Yeah. Let's look at the process of that. How do I get a young innovator building an app for security like they had done, or the one that we demonstrated to the president, the one for deaf people? How do we get that procured by government? We don't have a body that sits between this innovator and the government. Incubators don't do that. Our job is not to run to government procurement processes and figure them out and come on. Our job is to help you redefine your innovation, to make it useful, and to make it commercially viable. But so that's why we proposed strongly Enterprise Kenya. And this Enterprise Kenya is nothing new. It is Enterprise Island. There's Enterprise Israel and so many others. But so we said we want Enterprise Kenya, and Enterprise Kenya will sit between the incubators and innovators and government and experts. Yeah. So we're saying this, if Enterprise Kenya, if there is a tender from the Ministry of Defense, we want Enterprise Kenya to be the first one to tell the Ministry of Defense, hey, hold on, before you tender this out of the country for other suppliers, let's go through our incubators, let's go to NILAB, let's go to whatever other lab and see what do they have as far as this is concerned. And if they have something that can actually be used for our Ministry of Defense, then we will procure from them. And how we create a test bed where they will develop this solution. The IP will be local, and then the Ministry of Defense will procure directly from here. And afterwards, if Ministry of Defense is able to use whatever it is that they have received, we will be able to export this to other countries that are suffering similar problems, which now enables the innovator to not just build a solution, but also have a platform that helps them test whether it's good enough for the country. And if it's good enough for the country, it's good enough for the continent and other parts of the world. Now, so you can see the procurement process now comes back to the innovators, but at the same time helps the innovator export technology eventually.
Let me just throw this to you, because we're just looking at this, and in terms of, one, creating a commercially viable product. Yes. Secondly, how credible then does that make someone? Because when you hardly ever get to know about some of these young innovators until something is out there and is already in the market and is already taken off with that like 120,000 users. So how then do we bring about that issue of commercially viable for starters and the credibility of some of these innovations that are coming out?
Number one, first I'm challenged about the credibility bit a lot, having been in the sector. I think we were the first, NILAB was the first incubator in this country that actually produced startups at that level. And we were quite challenged because we realized initially nobody paid attention. Nobody listened to us, and so basically that whole idea of credibility. How do you know that a Kenyan solution is good enough? You know, it's a question of also us having a bit more faith, buying Kenya, building Kenya, which we lack a lot. Okay, and you can see that's why I'm saying, hey, I love the Microsoft, the Oracles, I love all these big multinationals, but we run to them first, then we actually look at our own people. Then we're saying, no, listen, Enterprise Kenya will build the credibility. Why? Because we have other streams we're going to be working on. One is skill development, making sure that the skill level found in Kenyan innovators is the same skill level you find anywhere else in the world. And the Presidential Digital Talent Program is going to help people do that from interning all the way to the top. We're looking at issues of test beds, you know, providing test beds for innovators. Before the solution goes to market, you have worked with one of the local corporations. They have opened up their data and you've been able to test your product with a sample of their customers, and if they like it, they scale it, and so that works. And so Enterprise Kenya will be responsible for that. Now, about quality assurance and everything else, again, Enterprise Kenya will be able to say this compared to this that comes from German is almost good enough, so you can actually use it. So we'll build credibility by building quality. We'll build quality by placing together a platform that enables people to, access the kind of resources they need for quality.
So it's all about skill. Right? People are first given a chance to either try and fail, or and we know we can't get this here. Let's go outside.
Let's go. Yes. So after that, the government can go outside. I know I've simplified, and understanding government procurement processes can be a bit of a serious issue to deal with. But as one of the people sitting in Enterprise Kenya right now, trying to organize all this to happen, my intention is to simplify it, because I want to think as an innovator. That 24, 25-year-old coming from the university right now does not need to understand government procurement processes. All they need to understand is how to build a really good solution. And this government procurement process should be simplified for them so that they understand this is what the government needs if you're going to plug into government systems. So while it's a very complex, as you called it earlier, difficult thing to deal with, Enterprise Kenya should be there to simplify that communication and just make sure that the innovators understand it easier. Of course, this also, another thing that we will probably be looking forward to as far as government procurement is concerned is, if you're a big company and you procure and you get a contract in this country, a part of that contract should go to building local content. And our biggest example we've been given for a while is the SGR contract. Making sure that whoever wins the contract, is there a portion that helps skill development? How many local engineers were hired? How many of those engineers will get skill transferred to them? How many of those engineers will be left to maintain?
So that when we get another standard gauge really, we don't have to go outside.
Now, if you're going to go ahead and say, okay, fine, we're going to give, and I remember my chairman Mike on Kitos giving an example of if a big company comes over and sells the government 100 cars, says we're going to sell you 1,000 cars, it's $1 billion, it's a $1 billion Kenya shillings contract. They sell government cars. How do we make sure that those cars are maintained and supported by local mechanics in local garages? How can you enforce that contract and say 30% of these contracts requires you as XYZ company to set up centers of excellence across the country, train mechanics, all those mechanics in the mtaani come over, they get trained, set up facilities for them. And when these government cars break down in any part of the country, they just drive to one of those mechanics, they get fixed in a place where they expect the same service
that they would get
from a multinational. And that transfers skills. So making all those mechanics who sit in corners now become real professionals, real certified mechanics who can handle a BMW, a Toyota, and Nissan at any level. So you can see how much more we can grow local small industries if we enforce certain cultures of making sure government procurement goes back to investing in the mwananchi, if that makes sense.
Let me just come to this funding aspect about startups.
Yes.
And obviously incubation hubs play their role in terms of just trying to nurture some of these ideas and purifying them, just making sure that they are ready for market. Funding is another challenge. We've seen recently a company like Safaricom come up with a 90 million kind of shilling venture fund to support some of these things, and actually with the possibility of either taking them up themselves or becoming a shareholder. So is that what is needed in this country in terms of connecting some of these young brilliant minds with where the money is?
Now, money chases good ideas, so we need to get that right first. So we get the good ideas right, money will not be a problem. But also, these good ideas, for them to become really good, they need a certain type of funding. Now, Safaricom Spark Fund has raised about $1 million, and so that was really, really good. I have to say, even the people behind the fund, like Veronica Ogeto, are really amazing people to work with, just in working with startups. NILAB is in the process of raising its fund. We already have secured between 300 to 500K right now. So NILAB will be having a NILAB seed fund in the very near future. And the reason we've seen this gap, we said we've discovered this. There's a lot of money when it comes to 150,000 to 250,000K tickets, or $250,000 funding. There's a lot of money going forward. There's a lot of people in this country who are willing to put $1 million on a good idea. But there's nobody willing to put in the $25,000 to 150,000. That space, nobody's there. Why? Because it's a high risk space. That's where you will,
so
out
it's
of
an
10.
All-in.
Yes, it's an all-in. Whether you fail or you pass, out of 10, only one will make it. And so you can imagine how high the risks are. But if nobody fills in that missing gap right now, the pipeline dries up, which means the people with 150, 250, a million don't have people to invest into because the pipe is drying up, because people are dying because nobody's putting money there. So we stepped it up, and I did a lot of travel last month, and I talked to foreign investors. And one of the questions foreign investors kept asking me, they said, why aren't there local investors? First, people like me can't afford to invest in that. We are still hustling. Two,
Hustle TM.
The hustle era, the hustle TM team. Two, local investors had a lot of competing interests.
Yeah.
They were looking into real estate, they were thinking about oil and gas, so they did not see technology as a very viable investment, an investment asset. So, but now, after the National Innovation Forum and the showcasing of products, that has changed. I have received multiple offers for people who want to invest in technology startups. So this particular missing gap may not be a problem going forward, but it has been a serious problem where innovations build something, they get to a point, there's a chasm, they fall and they die. And now we're providing a bridge slowly. I can see a bit more money will come into play, and the innovators will be able to get the 25,000, 50,000, 75,000, which enables them to survive their business within 6 to 12 months before they actually get where they're going.
In 20 seconds or less, what's the future of startups in this country?
Number one, we need this country to, we need to have more discipline, we need to have better work ethics, we need to be more focused. If you're a young person in university, if you don't have that kind of focus, it's not going to work for you. What's the future? I will not get to the specific details, but one of our 26-year-old lady has been able to build a company in 30 months and is in the process of getting that company acquired for over $1 million. So we're going to have a 26-year-old who is a millionaire in absolutely no time, in less than 30 months. Yeah. But I can take that as an example. You see, I've seen her being very disciplined, being extremely focused, going for the right markets, working out her product and her team extremely well. So what is that future? That future is a replication of that 26-year-old. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to a future where we have between 26 and 45-year-olds who are becoming millionaire, forming the next, the next group of wealthy people who can actually invest back into the ecosystem.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That has been Sam Gishoro, CEO of NILAB, just taking us through what is required for the next phase of techpreneurship and where this explosion is going. Dedication, focus, and actually just keeping to the core of what is required just to getting those startups to where they need to.